Hey everyone, and welcome back for another round of Trending Tidbits. We're going to be looking at something today that I think we all experience, that insatiable drive to know more, that curiosity.
Yeah, it's such a fundamental part of who we are, but we just, we kind of take it for granted.
Right. So to really kind of get under the hood of curiosity, we're diving into two really fascinating articles today.
Okay, cool.
One is from Neuron. It's called The Psychology and Neuroscience of Curiosity.
Okay.
And the other is from the Journal of Neuroscience. And this one is called Induction and Relief of Curiosity, Illicit Parietal and Frontal Activity.
Yeah, we're going to be diving deep into what defines curiosity, how it functions in our brains, and why it's so essential to how we learn and understand the world around us.
Yeah, so first things first, how do we even define curiosity? I mean, it seems so simple, but is it really that straightforward?
You'd be surprised, it's actually more tricky than you might think to define curiosity.
Really?
Yeah, like, is it just about wanting to know random facts, or is there something more to it?
Yeah, like, I know the capital of Wyoming,
Right.
but I wasn't exactly, like, burning with curiosity to find that out.
Exactly, and that's why a lot of researchers see curiosity as a specific type of information seeking.
Okay.
It's driven by this inner motivation, a genuine desire to understand rather than just needing information for a specific task.
So it's less about needing to know and more about the inherent satisfaction of filling in those knowledge gaps.
Yeah, you got it. And it's not just about accumulating random facts, it's about making things make sense.
Okay.
Remember William James, the philosopher?
Yeah.
He called curiosity the impulse towards better cognition. Like, we crave a clearer, more complete picture of the world.
The impulse towards better cognition. I like that.
Yeah.
So why is this drive to learn so important? What role does curiosity actually play?
Well, the dominant theory out there is that curiosity fuels learning.
Okay.
It's what pushes us to explore, experiment, and ultimately expand our knowledge base.
That makes sense intuitively.
Yeah.
But what's the mechanism there? How does curiosity actually lead to learning?
Well, one really prominent theory out there was proposed by George Loewenstein.
Okay.
It's called the information gap theory. And it suggests that curiosity is a lot like hunger.
Yeah.
We are driven to consume information until we reach a point of satiation, essentially closing that information gap.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So we feel this hunger for knowledge,
Right?
and then we seek it out, we consume it, and then we feel satisfied once we've filled that gap.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
A 2009 study by Kang and his colleagues found that we're actually most curious when we know a little something about a subject,
Okay.
but not everything.
Interesting.
There's a sweet spot, like a Goldilocks zone of curiosity.
So knowing a little bit sparks more questions, and then that leads to even more curiosity.
Yep, exactly. It seems our brains are wired to be most engaged when we're on the verge of a discovery.
Interesting.
Right, when we know enough to be intrigued, but not enough to feel satisfied.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, this drive to learn this curiosity, it's not just a human thing, is it?
No, not at all. Curiosity shows up all over the animal kingdom. We even see signs of information seeking in some of the simplest organisms out there.
Really?
Yeah, like the C. elegans roundworm.
Roundworms.
Wow.
Really? What could a roundworm possibly be curious about?
Well, it might not be conscious curiosity the way that we think of it,
Okay.
but these tiny creatures actually change their foraging strategies based on the information they gather about their environment.
So even for a creature with such a basic nervous system,
Yeah.
there's some benefit to exploration, to gathering new information.
Exactly. And when we look at primates research, using something called bandit tasks has been incredibly insightful.
Bandit tasks. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
Essentially, they involve a series of choices with varying levels of reward or uncertainty. Think of it like a slot machine.
Okay.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
So it's about figuring out the best strategy. Do I stick with what I know, or do I take a chance on something new?
Right, and these tasks help researchers understand this balance between exploration and exploitation. And interestingly, even when there's no obvious benefit, primates, and humans included, often exhibit what's called a novelty bonus. We're drawn to new things just because they're new.
So even without a clear reward, novelty itself can be motivating.
Absolutely.
I can relate to that.
Which brings us to the fascinating world of the brain. Have you ever wondered what actually happens in your brain when you feel that spark of curiosity?
All the time.
Yes.
Is there like a curiosity center in the brain, or is it more complex than that?
It's definitely not a simple curiosity button,
Okay.
But research has pinpointed several key areas that light up when we're curious, and one of the earliest fMRI studies on this was back in 2009 by Kang et al.
Okay.
And they found that when people were curious about trivia answers, two regions in particular became active: the caudate nucleus and the inferior frontal gyrus.
Interesting. So what do those parts of the brain do? Are they like the curiosity headquarters?
Well, not exactly headquarters, but they're definitely part of the network.
Okay.
Both regions are associated with reward anticipation, that feeling you get when you're looking forward to something good. Think about the excitement of opening a present.
So you're saying that curiosity itself can be rewarding.
That's one interpretation of it. Yeah, it suggests that the anticipation of gaining knowledge, of closing that information gap,
Okay.
triggers a pleasurable response, like our brains seem to love the thrill of finding things out.
I like that idea that the pursuit of knowledge is inherently enjoyable. But I have a feeling there's more to the story, right?
Yeah.
Not all curiosity feels purely pleasurable.
You're absolutely right. Curiosity can have different flavors. And another study, this one by Jetma and colleagues in 2012,
Okay.
looked at curiosity sparked by blurry, ambiguous images.
So in that case, the curiosity comes from wanting to make sense of something unclear.
Yeah.
Like, is that a cat or a dog in that fuzzy picture?
Exactly. And in this study, curiosity was associated with activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula, areas often linked to unpleasant feelings.
Wait, so curiosity can be linked to unpleasant feelings too? That
Yeah.
seems kind of counterintuitive.
It can, think of it like this: the lack of information creates a kind of tension or discomfort.
Okay.
And that feeling then motivates us to seek out the missing pieces to relieve that tension.
Like an itch you just have to scratch.
Exactly.
So whether we're drawn in by the promise of reward or driven by the need to resolve that uncertainty, it seems like curiosity is this powerful force that pushes us to learn.
Exactly. And what's even more fascinating is that research suggests that curiosity might even enhance our learning for totally unrelated information.
Wait, really? You mean being curious about one thing can make me a better learner overall?
That's what a 2014 study by Gruber and his team found.
Wow.
They discovered that when people were in a curious state, they were better at remembering neutral faces that they were shown, even though they weren't curious about the faces themselves.
So it's like curiosity primes the brain for learning.
Uh-huh.
It opens up this window of enhanced information absorption.
That's a great way to put it. It seems that being curious doesn't just help us learn specific things, it actually boosts our overall capacity to learn and acquire new knowledge.
That's incredible. So we've talked about knowledge gaps and this idea that we're driven to reduce uncertainty. But how much does uncertainty really influence curiosity?
Right.
Is there like a tipping point where we suddenly become super curious?
That's a great question, and it's exactly what a study by Van Lieshout et al. Aimed to find out.
Okay.
They designed a clever experiment using a lottery task to see how different levels of uncertainty affected curiosity.
A lottery task. Okay, now I'm curious. Tell me more about how that worked.
Okay, imagine you have a vase filled with marbles, some red, some blue.
Right.
Each color is worth a certain number of points, and one marble will be randomly selected.
Okay, got it. So the uncertainty comes from not knowing which color marble will be picked.
Exactly, and they changed the ratio of red to blue marbles to create different levels of uncertainty. Sometimes it was a 50-50 split, making it really hard to predict, while other times one color was much more likely.
Clever. And how did they actually measure curiosity? Did they just ask people how curious they felt?
They did that in one version of the experiment. Okay.
But they also used a more subtle measure: willingness to wait.
Oh, that's interesting. So the more curious people were, the longer they'd be willing to wait to find out which marble was chosen.
You got it. And their findings were fascinating. Curiosity consistently increased as the uncertainty about the outcome went up.
So the less predictable the outcome, the more curious people became. Makes sense to me.
Right, but here's the important part.
Okay.
This was true even when knowing the outcome didn't offer any strategic benefit. The participants couldn't influence the outcome or get any advantage by knowing it in advance.
So they were purely motivated by wanting to reduce that uncertainty.
Yeah.
Just wanting to know the answer, even if it didn't directly benefit them.
Exactly. It highlights how powerful uncertainty itself can be as a motivator.
Hmm.
We're hardwired to seek out information and make sense of the unknown.
That's amazing. Now, you mentioned the Van Lieshout study used brain imaging, right?
Yes.
Did they find anything about how the brain processes these different levels of uncertainty? They did. They found that as uncertainty increased during the task, there was heightened activity in a particular area of the brain, the left inferior parietal lobule.
Okay, refresh my memory. What does that part of the brain do again?
It's primarily involved in attention and decision-making.
Interesting. So it seems like as that uncertainty ramps up, our brain puts more attentional resources into play, maybe trying to gather more information to make sense of the situation.
Yeah.
Like it's like, hold on, this is getting unpredictable. Better pay close attention.
That's a great way to think about it. And then when the uncertainty is finally resolved, when the marble is revealed, a different set of brain regions lights up.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens in our brains when that curiosity is finally satisfied?
The study observed activation in the insula, the orbitofrontal cortex, and once again, the parietal cortex.
Hold on, the insula. Wasn't that one of the areas linked to unpleasant feelings in that JETMA study we were discussing?
Mhm.
Why would it be active when we get an answer we're curious about?
That's a great observation. It might seem counterintuitive, but the insula plays a critical role in processing what are called information prediction errors.
Information prediction errors. That sounds complicated.
Yeah.
Break that down for me.
It's basically the difference between what we expect to happen and what actually happens.
Okay.
The insula helps us register those discrepancies, those surprises,
Okay.
and update our understanding of the world based on that new information.
So in this lottery task, when that marble is revealed, the insula is comparing that outcome to what we initially predicted.
Exactly. And the Van Lieshout study found that the more surprising the outcome, the further it was from what we expected.
Okay.
The more active the insula became.
So it's like a little error detection system in our brains, constantly checking if our predictions match reality
Yeah.
and making adjustments as needed.
Hey,
Like,
Chloe.
well, that wasn't what I thought would happen.
Yeah,
Better revise my mental model.
precisely. And this system seems to be a key player in how we experience and learn from curiosity.
This is all so fascinating. We've learned so much about curiosity already, from its psychological roots to its neural underpinnings. It's clear that it's much more than just wanting to know random facts.
Absolutely. And we've only just scratched the surface.
I bet.
In the next part of Trending Tidbits, we'll explore the implications of these findings, looking at how we can cultivate curiosity more effectively in our own lives, so stay tuned.
I'm definitely curious to learn more about that.
Welcome back to Trending Tidbits. Before we go any further, let's just recap a little bit about what we've learned about curiosity so far.
Okay, so we've been talking about how it's not just about random facts.
Right.
It's really this deep-seated drive to understand, fueled by that need to close those information gaps. And it even has its own reward system in the brain.
Exactly. But now I'm curious, if curiosity is such a powerful tool for learning, how can we actually harness that power, in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, it's so easy to get stuck in our routines, surrounded by familiar information. So how do we break out of that and cultivate more curiosity?
Well, one strategy is surprisingly simple. Ask more questions.
Okay.
But not just any questions.
Yeah.
Try to foster what's called epistemic curiosity.
Epistemic curiosity.
Mm.
Is that different from, like, wondering who invented the spork?
It is. It's about seeking knowledge for the pure joy of it. It's less about what can I do with this information and more about, this is just fascinating to know.
So it's that kind of pure, playful curiosity that leads to those aha moments, those unexpected discoveries.
Exactly. But I know what you're thinking. In today's world, there's just too much information out there.
Right.
How do we even begin to focus our curiosity when we're constantly bombarded?
Yeah, it's like information overload is the norm these days.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to be mindful about what you consume. Instead of passively scrolling through endless feeds, try to actively seek out information that genuinely interests you,
Okay.
that aligns with your values.
So it's about being intentional with your curiosity, directing it toward things that really spark your interest, kind of like a mental Marie Kondo. Only keep the information that sparks joy.
I love that analogy. It's about choosing quality over quantity. And just like any skill, curiosity needs to be exercised. Make time for things that challenge you intellectually.
Okay.
Read a book on a new topic. Take a class. Have those thought-provoking conversations.
Those are all great advice. But what about those times when we feel stuck?
Yeah.
Like our curiosity's kind of fizzled out. Any tips for rekindling that spark?
Absolutely. One of the best ways to reignite that curiosity is through new experiences.
Okay.
Travel somewhere new, try a new hobby, talk to people from different backgrounds. Even small changes in your routine can make a big difference.
So sometimes all it takes is a little novelty to shake things up and open your mind to new possibilities.
Exactly. And don't forget, curiosity can be contagious.
Hmm.
Surround yourself with curious people, have those stimulating discussions, and be open to learning from others. Their enthusiasm can be incredibly inspiring.
Oh, I've definitely experienced that. Sometimes one conversation with someone who's passionate about their work can completely shift my perspective
Right.
and ignite a whole new wave of curiosity.
It's amazing, isn't it? Curiosity is a shared journey.
Yeah.
We learn from each other, inspire each other, and collectively expand our understanding of the world. It's like we're all explorers venturing into the unknown together.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
So to recap, cultivating curiosity means embracing those knowledge gaps,
Yeah.
asking meaningful questions, and actively seeking out new experiences.
And most importantly, it's about finding joy in learning.
Okay.
Curiosity shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be an adventure, a source of genuine excitement and personal growth.
Couldn't agree more. But before we wrap up, here's something I've been wondering about.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the benefits of curiosity, but are there ever downsides? Are there potential pitfalls that we should be aware of?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll explore when we return for the final part of Trending Tidbits. Don't go anywhere.
And we're back for our final round of Trending Tidbits, where we're exploring the fascinating world of curiosity.
Yeah, we've talked about how powerful curiosity can be. You know, it drives learning, it shapes our understanding, it even brings us joy.
Right. But as we were talking about before, I'm wondering if there's a flip side to all this. Can curiosity ever be, well, a little too much of a good thing?
That's a great question. And, sometimes, yeah. While curiosity is an incredible force for good, it's important to approach it with a bit of caution and a healthy dose of critical thinking.
So what kind of pitfalls are we talking about here? When does curiosity maybe cross a line?
Well, one potential downside is, information overload. We live in a world that's just saturated with information coming at us from every direction.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Sometimes it feels like I'm drowning in information, and let's be honest, not all of it is accurate or useful or even worth my time.
Exactly. And this constant barrage of information can actually make it harder to focus on what's truly important.
Okay.
It can lead to mental fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and even anxiety.
Oh, I've totally been there. That feeling of being overwhelmed and mentally drained from trying to keep up with everything.
It's a common experience in our, hyper-connected world, and that's why it's crucial to be mindful of our information intake and to be really selective about our sources, prioritizing quality over quantity, making sure we're feeding our curiosity with information that's both valuable and manageable.
So instead of just passively consuming whatever pops up, we need to be more proactive about seeking out information that aligns with our interests and our values.
Think of it as curating your own mental diet. Just like you wouldn't eat anything and everything. You shouldn't let just any information into your mind.
That's such a helpful way to think about it. Now, you mentioned critical thinking, and that brings up another concern I have.
Yeah.
Curiosity can sometimes lead us down these internet rabbit holes, where you end up in the land of misinformation or conspiracy theories.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get caught up in a captivating narrative, especially if it plays into our existing biases or anxieties.
Exactly. And with so much misleading content online,
Yeah.
it's more important than ever to be skeptical,
Right.
to double-check information before accepting it as truth.
I couldn't agree more. It's about striking that balance.
Okay.
Being open and curious, but also being discerning and critical.
So how do we walk that tightrope? How do we cultivate that healthy skepticism without stifling our natural curiosity?
It's a lifelong process, really. It involves strengthening those critical thinking skills,
Okay.
learning to evaluate sources, and being aware of our own biases.
So it sounds like it's not just about what we're curious about, but also how we approach that curiosity.
Exactly. It's about approaching information with a discerning eye, asking those questions like who's sharing this information, what's
Yeah.
their motivation, does this align with what I already know, or does it seem a bit off?
It's like being a detective for information,
Yeah.
using our curiosity to uncover the truth rather than just blindly accepting whatever we come across.
I love that analogy. And remember, curiosity shouldn't just confirm our existing belief. It's about expanding our understanding by engaging thoughtfully with different perspectives, even those that challenge our own views.
That's such a key point. It's about using curiosity to build bridges, not walls.
Right.
But before we wrap up, there's one final piece of this puzzle that I want to touch on.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that unchecked curiosity can sometimes have unintended consequences in the real world.
Yeah, that's right. And this might be the trickiest aspect of all. While curiosity is all about exploring and discovering, it's important to remember that knowledge is a powerful tool, and it should be used responsibly and ethically.
So we need to temper our curiosity with a sense of responsibility
Yeah.
and think about the potential consequences of our actions.
Exactly. Think about, the spread of misinformation or engaging in risky behavior fueled by that unchecked thirst for knowledge.
Right, like someone might be so curious about a dangerous activity that they end up putting themselves or others at risk.
That's a perfect example. While encouraging, exploration and a healthy amount of risk-taking is important, it's equally crucial to cultivate a sense of ethics and responsibility when it comes to using the knowledge that we gain.
It's like the old saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that curiosity, while a powerful driver of progress and discovery, needs to be balanced with wisdom and careful consideration of its potential impact.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's clear that curiosity is this amazing gift,
Yeah.
but it's up to us to use it wisely.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of our sources, engaging in a respectful dialogue, and always considering the ethical implications of our knowledge seeking.
Well said. So to everyone listening out there, keep that curiosity burning bright, explore new ideas, ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
But remember to approach the world with both wonder and wisdom.
And never stop asking those questions. It's what makes us human, drives us forward, and helps us understand this incredible world that we live in.
That's a wrap on another insightful Trending Tidbits. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.